Max Verstappen wins the French Grand Prix, extending his lead at the Drivers' Championship. Lewis Hamilton finishing in second place and Sergio Perez wrapping up the podium spots. But who cares about that podium? This is the podium you lot have all tuned in for, the Peter On Pole Podium. Welcome to my F1 channel, Peter On Pole here to discuss the top 3 drivers of the French Grand Prix. In third place, I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton. That is correct. When you consider Mercedes this season, they haven't really been the front runner this season. And yet Lewis Hamilton over the weekend, after his incident in Baku, has come back onto this weekend, done a very good qualifying session, it must be said. I was very surprised to see him on the front row of the grid in second place. And when you consider Max Verstappen's mistake in turn 1 and 2, Lewis Hamilton put the car in front and actually held his own. He actually did very well considering his complaints on team radio regarding the tyre management. And bear in mind, there was about 20 laps to go when he started asking questions about whether we should change things up. He still managed to keep that car in the front up until the final lap, until Max Verstappen overtook him because he was on a fresher tyre, which Lewis Hamilton would have loved to at least have, and he would have probably won the race. But Lewis Hamilton, for what it was worth, for what he had, I think it was actually he's done a very underrated job. He managed to keep that car in prime condition, and if it wasn't really for the team strategists, maybe Lewis Hamilton should have won this race. Very experienced, mature driving from him, and he did well to hold off as long as he could. But of course, if the race was 1 lap shorter, then maybe, and maybe that's something to do with Valtteri Bottas as well, but that's for another conversation and for another video. In second place, I could not decide, so you know what, I'm going to put both of them in second place. That's Team McLaren, yes, Danny Ricciardo and Lando Norris. Smooth driving from both of them, some good overtaking as well. I'll tell you what, Ricciardo and Alonso it was the fire. I mean, the one on Science as well, it was just galore. Big up Lando Norris as well when he came in. Alonso had a horrific time when he was being passed by both McLarens in such quick succession. But on race day, the McLaren seems to be doing something very, very well. And when you consider that the Ferrari were the best of the rest really in qualifying, I tell you what, McLaren did dispatch them well. And McLaren look very, very comfortable where they are at the moment. And although they might be like, I think they finished a minute behind Valtteri Bottas, which seems incredible. Nonetheless, they're still progressing. McLaren are still working their way through, and I think they're going to be the outstanding third place team in the constructors. I don't think Ferrari really have a chance. There's too much stacks against Ferrari. Great overtaking from both drivers, as I mentioned earlier, and Danny Ricciardo seems to be getting in the groove now, seems to be learning that McLaren very well, and hopefully we're going to see much more impressive results from Danny Ricciardo throughout the rest of the season. Great drive again as well from Lando Norris, smooth as well, learning and growing. I mean, I'm absolutely like in love with this guy's driving, and just loving the way that he's trying to learn about the team and learn about being a Formula 1 driver as a whole. Consistently in the points, I think he's the only driver to date now with points finishes in every single race, and we're not talking 10th and 9th place, we're talking in the 6th, 5th and 4th. So fair play to Lando Norris, big up yourself, big up McLaren, you finished P2. But number 1 has to go to, I'm going to use 2 people again in this one. It's going to be Max Verstappen and Red Bull, because you know what? Max Verstappen made a mistake in turn 1, turn 2, and I was very furious with him because even the way he approached that first turn, I thought was literally illegal. Like, what is he doing? You never do that as a Formula 1 driver. And who am I? I'm just a guy who drives a... Yeah, never mind. But he recovered well, so fair play to Max Verstappen. And my goodness, the Red Bull team, when they pulled the trigger to go for the undercut, it worked superbly for them. So well that it made people question, why did Mercedes do this? Well, listen, hindsight is 2020. But when Red Bull pulled that trigger, you thought, oh, they are onto something. And they've always been the king of strategists. Let's be very clear. Mercedes have always had great cars, and Red Bull have always had to use something else to gain them the upper hand, whether it was their incredible pit stops, whether it's their strategies. But this time around, they've got a good car and the strategies are still on point. So big up to them. And a huge thing, by the way, I will not stop saying it all season long. You're going to get bored of me saying it. Sergio Perez being in that second seat is delightful for Red Bull, because of course it helps Max Verstappen in the title charge, and maybe even helps Sergio Perez himself in the title charge, but it also almost stamps, what is it, week 7? Is it race week 7? They've won the Constructors title already. That's it. There's no way I can see Mercedes turning it around, turning this deficit around to be winning the Constructors. The Constructors, well done Red Bull, you have won the Constructors by simply recruiting a driver worthy of note. And I tell you what as well, Mercedes are having to think for 2 drivers now. It's not just about thinking about what's Max Verstappen going to do, but when Perez is there, because remember he went on the long strategy, and my goodness, how those tyres lasted so well and so long for Sergio Perez. It was just brilliant teamwork from the guys. But Max Verstappen, listen, you're maturing, you're getting better and better as the race races go by. I'm very much impressed with your qualifying. You finished on pole in qualifying, and then again you finished the race coming back into first place after you made the mistake. Now Max of old, and maybe not even that long ago, we can go back to Bahrain or something like that, he may have not recovered well from this. He may have not kept his cool, kept his head. We know Max to be red hot at times. Mad Max, sometimes the nickname comes. But the man was cool. He was like, you know, the Dennis Bergkamp, the Iceman, if you will, for all the Dutch people out there. And he literally kept that car very well. The car was brilliant. And I genuinely don't understand, like, the way he was, you know, the lap, is it the in lap, before you go into the pit stop? I don't know what kind of drugs this man is taking. But him and Sergio Perez, in the last 2 races, they've been doing in laps that are quicker than qualifying laps. And they somehow, because I still can't fathom how Max Verstappen finished or came out ahead of the Mercedes, and it was just unbelievable stuff from the Red Bull team. And there was a bit of pressure when the 2 Mercedes were right behind Max. Again, I don't think a Max of old would have necessarily handled that pressure very well, but this time around he held it off, and then he was set off to the sunset, and he collected you know, in the long run when he done the second stop, and he came, and what was he, 14 seconds behind Bottas. Done him. Bottas, I mean, what kind of defending was that? I don't call it defending where I'm from. And then to finish the race 14 seconds ahead of Bottas, Max was on pure fire. You could say it was probably Bottas being the lag, but nonetheless, Max had one job to do, and he had 1 lap to do it in, and he made it work. And so hats off to Max Verstappen. I have to give him the drive of the day because of all those little things that you have to put into place. But honourable mentions, of course, George Russell, no retirements in the race, and he finished P12. That's always going to be something to talk about. I have to, because I give him stick as quickly as the next guy. But you know what, P12, George Russell. And I was worried about you because at the start I see man lagging behind Latifi. I see him lagging around there, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this guy went into Q2, didn't he? And yeah, I see him like in 18th place straight away, and I thought, something's not quite right. But P12, big up yourself, George Russell. Big up to Pierre Gasly as well, another top 10 finish. The man finished ahead of both Ferraris and the Aston Martin. And let me finish off with the Aston Martin, because I tell you what, your strategy game is on point. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Even both Aston Martins finishing in the top 10, both of them finishing in the points. Remember, Stroll started P19. So I'll tell you what, they're working something in that car. You know, the Aston Martin's starting to come together slowly. Big up yourselves. I love the fact that they're doing they're playing the long game. When everyone's going into the pits in the first 15 or so laps, you know, lap 25 and lap 30, and we're still seeing people out there. And it nearly worked for Stroll in Baku, unfortunately, for his tyre. But Aston Martin are slowly working. I think Alpine need to wake up and have a look and see, you know, watch out. Even Ferrari, watch out a little bit. I think Aston Martin are they're building foundations. And I think, you know, the season is very long. Remember, it's only race 7 out of 22, 23, whatever it may be. So there's a long way to go. So let's see what happens with the Aston Martin. Those are my top 3 drivers, of course, for this weekend. I started off with Lewis Hamilton in 3rd place, both McLaren boys, or McLaren as a whole, in 2nd place, and Max Verstappen / Red Bull in pole position. Let me know who your top 3 drivers were this weekend. Let me know who I missed out on. Let me know who I was harsh on. Let me know if the order was incorrect. As always, if you like the video, please hit the like button as well. Shout out to the Pit Stop Fracker as well. I was on their podcast, so I'm going to put a link to the podcast below and in the cards as well. We did a full review of the French Grand Prix. It was fantastic. I had great fun there. Big up to the Pit Stop Fracker, guys. We move on next to the Austrian Grand Prix, but before that, we're going to have the worst 3 drivers, so stay tuned for that one. The bottom 3 drivers of the French Grand Prix coming up. With that said, people, lights out.